Now, President Vladimir Putin of Russia has said that his government will respond in a tit-for-tat manner to a recent missile test by the United States. On Monday, the Pentagon had said that it tested a conventionally configured cruise missile that hit its target after more than 500 kilometers of flight. It was the first such test since the demise of the landmark Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty this month. Putin told the United Nations Security Council that Russia could not sit idly by and watch. Washington formally withdrew from the Cold War-era Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty on the 2nd of August after accusing Moscow of violating it. It's a charge that Moscow has vehemently denied. Now, Putin also spoke about the United States talking of deploying missiles in Asia. He said, and I quote, "All this leaves no doubt that the real intention of the United States in exiting the INF Pact was to untie its hands to deploy previously banned missiles in different regions of the world," unquote. Now, the INF Treaty had prohibited land-based missiles with a certain range. It drastically reduced the ability of both countries to launch a nuclear strike on short notice. Now, with the treaty's demise, Russia says that the US is looking to restart an arms race. And Ross Cullen joined me live from Moscow for more on this developing story. Good evening, Ross. Take us through the import of what Putin said there. He's talking about a fit or just retaliation to the US missile test. What does it mean for the world at large and the US in particular?
Well, he chaired that meeting of the Russian National Security Council this morning. President Vladimir Putin, other top politicians in attendance, Defence Minister Sergei Shoigu, the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and Mr. Putin has instructed the Defence and Foreign Ministries to analyse the possible threat to Russian national security from this US missile test, and he's asked them for comprehensive measures to prepare for what's been described by Mr. Putin as a symmetrical response. Now, we haven't had any finer details about what that response might entail, but if it is going to be, if you like, on face value, a symmetrical response, it would be then perhaps involving a missile test that flew 500 kilometres and hit its target. That's exactly what happened in the US, and if Mr. Putin is vowing a symmetrical response, it might look like something like that. Not going to have any further detail on that unless and until something like that does happen. Mr. Putin also in this meeting was keen to stress that Russia has been vindicated. Russia has been proved right by what he says the US's behaviour. Since in 2018 it announced it was minded to pull out of this INF treaty and then started a orchestrated propaganda campaign, Mr. Putin says, against Russia, accusing Russia of violating the pact, saying that Russia has been destabilising international treaties, and saying that the US has to pull out if one partner is not going to keep up its side of the bargain. Mr. Putin says, we complained about this. It was US behaviour that was threatening the pact, and now he says, after the test on the 18th of August of this cruise missile, that came just 16 days after the official end of the INF Treaty on the 2nd of August. Vladimir Putin says 16 days is not long enough to conceive of, design, develop and test a missile from scratch, showing that, in fact, the US has been undermining the treaty for much longer than it had originally said.
All right, Ross Cullen in Moscow, thank you so much for that update.